Welcome everyone to my podcast. I have Thomas Watkins on here, who is a Air Force veteran. He's also a former military working dog handler and kennel master. Before we start, I have two things I want to show you. So, JJ spit up right before when I was getting ready, and it just so happened that the closest thing was this Go Marines, and then me, I am wearing
Yeah.
Flex shirt. We both had to represent in different ways. So, tell us about yourself and how you got into dogs.
All right. So my name's Thomas Watkins, as she said. I got into dogs honestly when I was stationed in Turkey. One of my good friends, I was actually gonna go cat him, and he's like, "Man, don't worry about those guns. Like, come train dogs." At the time, like I was always around dogs. I loved dogs as a kid. Always had dogs, but it was just like something that I didn't ever have aspirations of doing in the military. Or I didn't think it was like a cool job. And he just kept haggling me like, "Hey man, just come out to the kennels one time, and then after that, if you don't like it, cool." And I went out and I got in the bike too, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it, and I was like, "How do I get to do this job?" And he explained to me the whole process of going to the kennels, doing kennel support. So I did that the entire year that I was in Turkey was kennel support. I would literally get off work because I was on nights. I'd get off work at like 4 or 5 in the morning and immediately go straight to the kennels and train with them all freaking day. And I'd just be exhausted on the next day of work or next night of work. And I ended up filing or submitting my application for K9. And literally like 3 weeks later, I found out that I got approved. Um, and that was just K9 changed my life as far as the military. It was literally the only reason why I stayed in as long as I did. Is because of it. So that's just a little bit about me and how I became K9.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, for anyone that doesn't know, Thomas and I met through Sherrod and through Hella Canines about 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago now. Yeah, it's been 3 years actually. Oh wow, it'll be 3 years this summer.
Crazy.
So I know. So, and Thomas actually worked for us for a little while too, helping us with some of the detection dogs that we had. So we've known each other for a while. Sherrod and I and some of the other people from Hella Canines have gone out and trained with the whole crew over there. I on my detection episode with Tara Burke, I was talking about how remember when I put Bezra, we did like boxes the first time we went out.
Yeah.
Were you not there the first time we went out, right?
Yeah, I was there. I was there.
Yeah, so you remember when I was like, oh yeah, we just bought this drug dog, and then she just like took a shit and was just like not searching. Good times. But so how long were you a canine handler for?
So I started in 2018. So from 2018 to November of 2023, yeah, is when as long that's how long I've been K9. So about 5 years, 5.5 years.
Oh wow. So what does a typical day look like for you with whatever dog you're assigned to? Because you guys, you handle different dogs throughout the day, right?
Um, Not when I was a trainer, kennel master, yes, but like as a handler, you're pretty much assigned to that dog. The only time that you take care of the other dogs is when you're coming on shift or you're doing the every 4 hour kennel checks on each dog, spraying out their kennels, giving them water and stuff like that. But the typical day for a canine handler, they'll come in around whatever time they have their showtime is. They'll come in. First thing we do is we spray out kennels, squeegee kennels, and then we go in and feed the dogs, wait like 30 minutes to an hour. They'll piss and poop, and then after that, clean the kennels, and then you grab your dog, you go arm up at the armory, go to guard mount, and then boom, you're back on the road. And throughout the day, well, the trainers or the kennel master will have training set up, whether it's obedience, detection, or bite work, because we have like monthly requirements that we have to hit with each dog every single month. And so, in order for them to maintain their certifications, they have to hit those specific tasks monthly or weekly, bi weekly, for them to stay up on their certifications.
What kind of criteria do dogs need to meet to become a military working dog? And then what would be some reasons that a dog would be washed from either detection or, bite work?
Some of the criteria that they need is just the basic stuff, right? They need hunt drive, prey drive, and some dogs food drive. And so with that, the guys down at DTS, from what I've seen, and the guys and friends that I know that are down there, they do a damn good job at selecting dogs or testing these dogs prior to them coming out to the fleet. Like I know a few, Cody, Terry, Lindsey Thompson when he was down there, Vince Ford, which you should know. I'm pretty sure you know Vince Ford. Or Nickelford. He's down at Virginia Beach, but he's down there. Those guys pushed out some really solid dogs, and so they look for stuff like that to make sure that the dog will be able to hunt for odor. I believe they start off with the Kong first, and so they'll hide the Kong, entice the dog, hide the Kong, and allow the dog to work and hunt and search for the Kong. And then they start pairing it with odor. And then once the dog is imprinted on that, they take the Kong away, and then they'll just have the dog respond on the odor itself. For bite work, they're testing this dog's prey, the defense, and stuff like that, just to make sure that the dog has both, so it could be productive in the task that we're trying to train them in. And then what'll wash a dog is, again, lack of drive, lack of motivation. There are some dogs that'll come in that aren't dual, that are single purpose, that'll have like low drive, but they're manageable. And typically you'll see that in a bomb dog because you don't want a super crazy, psychotic bomb dog. And so typically we'll see those in the bomb dogs, some of the bomb dogs, not all. And then you just got to find ways to work them to motivate and keep them motivated to search.
Why in a bomb dog do you not want them to be crazy?
So you don't want them to be crazy because, again, at the end of the day, like when we're going on deployments and we're searching vehicles hours and hours on end and stuff like that. Those people, they're watching us. They're trying to see how we're searching and stuff like that. So you don't want a super sporadic dog or explosive dog while you're searching because then they could booby trap the vehicle to be like, hey, the dog goes up here, and as soon as they hit it, boom, something detonates or a V bed or something like that. So you really want a dog that's methodical in their search and very consistent in their pattern versus a dog that's just bouncing all over the place. And then that also helps you as a handler know what your dog has hit and what your dog has missed, just in case you have to step in and present a specific area.
That's really interesting. So where are the military working dogs actually sourced?
So I don't know exactly, but I know we get them from Europe. Where in Europe exactly? I have no idea. But I know that I had a couple buddies that again that are down in DTS that have either done it or they know exactly where they come from. But I know they come from Europe and they go and they do the testing there, and then they bring them back and they do more testing with the dogs prior to them conducting actual training.
Awesome. So let's get into, well, hold on, let me ask these questions first. So, what are the most common breeds for the military working dogs? And obviously, this might be different just relating to the specific job, but tell us about that.
So the most common breeds that we have, obviously German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois. We have a few labs. I'll just speak on the Air Force because I don't know for every other branch. But yeah, we have German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois. We have, and then we have labs. Those are the breeds that I've seen. I believe one time, at one point in time, the Air Force did have a GSP.
You guys get a lot of Mal Shepherd crosses or no?
Now, like in the past couple of years, yes. Before, not really, but now we're seeing a lot of mixed breeds and with the Mal and the Shepherd. And I will say, like, I've worked one before, and I like what I'm seeing, to be honest, because you get the best of both worlds. I'm a Mal guy, and I love that psycho craziness, but you also get that mellow, and especially when it comes to like detection, right? Especially, let's speak on a bomb dog. Like you want that. You want, you want both sides of it.
So, what are the different jobs that they could have? And I don't know if there's different components to each job, but just explain that a little bit.
So the different jobs that we have, as far as like the military working dog, again, I'm solely going to speak on the Air Force because that's where I was at. We either do like base security, we do Secret Service missions for the president, obviously deployments, and we also do like Secret Service missions for any big wigs, senators, all that stuff. We'll get dispatched, and then depending on the base that you're at, you can also get tasked to sweep for bombs at different bomb threats in the city and the stuff that your base is stationed at or wherever you're stationed at. And that's happened a few times when I was out there in Virginia. We had to go sweep the courthouse for bomb threats, and so like you get your hands in a lot of pots. It's very fun. I loved it. I did.
Yeah, it seems fun when John was in the military when he was stationed at Indian Head in Maryland. He had some like special missions, whatever you want to call them. He had some missions at the White House, so I know that he enjoyed those. So just tell us about your personal experience, like how deployment was for you with your. I assume you got deployed with a dog, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So tell us
So,
about that.
so my experience with deployments, I've been on 3 deployments with the dog. And the first one was with Black. I was in Jordan. Yeah, I was at NSAB in Jordan, and that deployment was probably by far the best deployment that I had. We did a lot of vehicle searches and stuff like that, but I think the experience with me and like the history of Black and how much he means to me and how aggressive he was, but for me to be able, I think that deployment really made us even stronger as a team because it was just
Yeah.
me and him. Like he slept in my room. I took him to work when I was off. We were either training or I'm taking him on long walks around the compound and stuff, and just really just training him anywhere and everywhere I possibly could, just to get him to get out of that aggressiveness and trying to just bite everyone he sees. So I think that deployment meant a lot to me, just because at that kennel that I was at, I was the only handler that was able to validate and certify on that dog, and that just it
I
proved to
didn't
me,
know that. That's awesome.
yeah, it just proved to me that like this job, this dog training and stuff was for me. It was meant for me, and I think that's when I really started to dig deeper in, my skill set, reaching out, trying to find different avenues of training methods and stuff like that. Was after that deployment. So that one by far was the best deployment for me and Black, and yeah, I loved
So
it.
going back to Bleck a little bit, where is he now?
So right now he's currently still in Tennessee until I get a house. So right now I'm looking for land. I found this place. It's like 13 acres of land because, again, at the end of the day, he's genetically aggressive. Like it's not ever gonna go away.
Yeah.
That's just what Black is, and so I want to be able to give him for the rest of the life that he has left. Give him that land to just be free, roam free, do whatever the heck you want, dude, and just love life. So I've been looking at plots of land, and I ride horses and stuff like that. So I
We'll get
need
into that. Don't worry. I put that at the end. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know that's watching, Thomas was just on the news with Black, just sharing his story with him a little bit. So it's really awesome because it's been a few years in the making. It's just Thomas has been trying to get him for a while, and now it'll soon be happening as soon as you find the house and the property that you want. Um, so tell us about your other deployments.
So my other deployments was so I went to Tyndall in 20 2019 after they had that big hurricane. And so I went with Black there as well. And that one was one of the most intense one. It was a stateside deployment. Some people don't consider it a deployment. I do because I slept in tents. And it was a very shitty time. And it was 9 months long. But we pretty much just provided security for the base, and they had off base housing that got destroyed, but they had a lot of squatters out there. And so us as the K9 teams, we'd have to go in house to house, making sure that there was nobody in there. And so I remember this one time we had this guy that broke into one of the officers' RVs because most of the officers were staying offsite in RVs and campers, and they called us out, and I had to, challenge an area and like, hey, if you don't come out, like, my dog's gonna bite you. And they specifically picked my dog because they knew for a fact like that dog's gonna bite. And right before I released him, like that guy, by God's grace, he came out because he was gonna get fucked up.
You're gonna get some Black love.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. Like I will say, like that was probably like I got a lot of law enforcement experience during that time because it was like the Wild West out there. Like they're like, hey, if we need you to send your dog, you will send your dog, and that you typically don't see that in the military as often. Like yes, some are there deployments of dogs in the military? Yes, but does it happen often? No, it's very very rare. So
Yeah.
that would have been pretty cool.
That's super interesting that you said that because that's something that I've been wondering as well. I've thought about it in the past,
Mhm.
um, because you never really hear. I mean, it's not like you're just hearing everything that's going on, but you never really hear of a lot of bites and stuff like that on the military
Yeah.
side of it. But I thought that was interesting. So would you say that there's more detection dogs than there are apprehension dogs?
I would say there's a mixture of both. Like we do still have like a lot of dual purpose dogs. Um, and we also do have a lot of single purpose dogs. And then typically for the duals, around like 7, 8 years old, just to preserve the life of the dog. For the military side, like we try to make them a single purpose dog versus bite. Because again, we're just training, we're doing all this bite work, but these dogs aren't getting bites. So it's like there's no reason for us to just continue to do that. Wear and tear on the dog when we could just use them for detection. So when
Yeah.
when I was in that seat, trainer, kennel master, like I would try to push to be like, hey, these dogs at this age, like let's preserve them, preserve their body, especially like even when they retire out, like longevity wise, because they're not doing the work anymore and so much bite work and stuff. I feel like their body just deteriorates a lot quicker if you
Yeah.
continue that on. So try to help the
Yeah,
dogs out
definitely.
as much as possible.
So you had one or two other deployments besides those ones?
I had one other one, and that was my last one that I went on to where I went to Saudi Arabia with Largo. That was the one.
Largo.
Yeah, Largo. I think that was the one that really is dear to my heart because obviously, he passed away. He was a very young pup, and I remember when I first started working with y'all. I remember when I finally got it, and then that whole deployment, like I kept calling Sherrod or sending him videos like, look what I did, and I'm sure he got tired of it, but I was so obsessed with
No, he definitely
how quick.
didn't. He loved your updates.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
just
you did an awesome job.
yeah, that dog. I think for me, as far as training wise, that was the dog that I was like, hey, like I'm very impressed that my skill set was with that dog for sure
Yeah.
by far. Like he was a very great dog, and he definitely challenged me. He was a very stubborn dog too, but he's a really good dog that allowed me to show my skill set through him. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Largo was the best boy. So, are you guys in the military allowed to use training tools for your working dogs? And if so, which one?
Yes, we are. So again, flat collar. We're allowed to use choke chains and then prong collars. We aren't allowed to use e-collars. I believe the Army is like they have a course that they go through for petty because they use e-collars for detection and directionals and stuff like that when they're searching for bombs and stuff like that with their dogs. But as far as the Air Force goes, like yeah, we're not allowed to use e-collars unless like we get a dog and we go talk to DTS or talk to the head of DTS and they're like, hey, like yes, but I'm sure there's also policies and regulations that you have to go through for in order for that to happen. So
Yeah, all that red tape.
yeah.
Okay, so he keeps farting on my leg. I don't know if you hear it. Just like his dad. So how do you personally and kind of your guys' program for starting detection?
So I'll say, are you talking about in the military?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the military, once we get green dogs, typically, or at least the kennels that I've been at, either the kennel master or the trainer has that dog for at least 2 to 3 weeks prior to giving it off to a handler. And reason being, again, the trainer is in that position for a reason, and it's because of their skill set, their knowledge, and their typically they have proven themselves to be in that trainer's seat to train other dog teams. It doesn't always happen that way. I'm be honest. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it's just like, hey, you've been a handler for 8 years. Here, go to Soup's course, and it sucks. But like that's the military. But
Yeah.
in my eyes, like you have to be proven to be in that seat. And so when I was in that seat, I would have the dog for 2 to 3 weeks, and once we get the dogs in, I would either use scent boxes or I just plant it straight on vehicles and I wouldn't give the dog any commands. I just walk the dog around the vehicles just to see if the dog's going to actively sniff and respond on odor. Some dogs did, some dogs didn't. They just wanted to play or whatever, which is cool. That's not a bad thing because, again, I never gave them the command to seek. But if I see potential in a dog that I know is going to hunt without me giving them the command, then I know what I'm working with versus, all right, cool, just love me and play with me kind of dog. And so moving forward from there, I'll either, again, do scent boxes or scent wall or something like that, just to build the dog's focus on odor. That's one thing that I do like to build. Because lately or previously, when I was in the military, we were getting dogs that would go to source and turn around and sit and look at the handler for the reward. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? No, it's not. But for my kennels and our expectations, I want the dog to lock on odor and sit. And no matter what I'm doing, that dog should be obedient to odor, not to me at that point. And so
Yep.
that's what I typically do with the dogs that we get, the green dogs that we got, was to just pretty much build that focus in odor before I start any problems or training problems or anything like that with them. And I usually do that with a scent box. And so what I'll do, and I'll do it with one scent box. I'll just set the odor in the scent box, let it cook for 30 minutes or so. I'll bring the dog out, and I'll either sit on the chair or I'll stand up and just allow the dog to go to source and then sit. And I free shape that behavior of them locking on odor. If they come out and look at me, or they come respond on odor and they look at me, I just wait them out. I'm a huge fan of free shaping because for me, you just get a lot better result. It might take time or longer time than, hey, me turning the dog around or paying on sniff or whatever. But
Yeah.
to me, that's the beauty of it is to wait the dog out and let the dog self discover for himself.
Yeah.
But that's typically what I do.
Yeah. I love free shaping, like you said, and it just makes it also gives them the confidence too to learn new things
Exactly.
around them.
Yep.
Okay, so what is your ideal breed for detection?
Come on now, you know the answer to that.
I
Give
gotta
me a
ask. It's a
mile.
formality.
Definitely miles for sure. I just love them. I love the craziness. I love the energy that they bring. I love them wanting to be like in my skin. And I don't know why, but I absolutely love it. And for me, I think I have an easier time training mouse versus shepherds. And I think it's not like the shepherds. I just like I bring that energy, so I want my dog to bring that energy. Now, mind you,
Yeah,
I see you have some shepherds that bring that fucking heat. I know,
thanks.
but typically, like, I just like the mouse. I just do.
Yeah, John is the same way. He is like a Mao as a person.
Yeah.
I feel like you're like that too. He went over to the dark side. It's my fault because when he wanted a dog, I gave him Nala, like our most pet dog that we have. And he was like, fuck this. I need something else. And then we got Fuego, and you know Fuego.
Yeah. Way to go.
Um, so what do you do now?
So now that I'm out of the military, I moved back home to Texas, and now I train police dogs, personal protection dogs, and private contract dogs for either detection, bite work, and also tracking.
How is police training going, and what would you say are the biggest similarities and differences than what you've been doing with the military?
Honestly, I absolutely love the job that I do. I have no complaints with the job that I do. I will say, because when I was in the military, like every canine handler's dream is to go to DTS and train hundreds of green dogs and this and that. And I pretty much get to do that on a smaller scale.
Yeah,
We get our green dogs from Poland, and our boss, he brings them in. They fly in, and we'll give them like a couple days to a week or so to acclimate, and then we're training them. And so I love getting new dogs in, and in fact, we're about to get new ones in on Tuesday. And so I just love going out to the kennels and clipping them up on a leash, and they're just all nutty and crazy. And then that week goes by of training, and then you see a completely different dog. And just figuring out what works for each dog. I think that's the beauty of it that just keeps me coming back to, hey, I can't, no matter what I do, I can't leave dog training. And then
yeah,
it's because of that. The similarities that I see with police dogs and the military is, again, bite work detection. No matter where you go, no matter who you work for, it's all the same. There's different methods that I've seen with police dogs that I didn't really see in the military. But other than that, they're very similar. The owner, he's a retired Navy canine handler, and so he knows his shit, and he has a lot of ways or different ways of doing things that I haven't seen or heard of before. That he shows me, I'm like, damn, okay, cool. Like I'm gonna add that to my toolbox and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's just cool. He's been doing it for years now. He has a good system going on. So, like I said, I thoroughly enjoy it. Now the differences I see is in the military, we harp on obedience a lot. In the police world, from what I've seen, that is not what they harp on at all. They're like, hey, if that fucker can bite, if he can find bombs or narcotics, cool, we're good. And I'm just like, it makes my skin crawl. So what I try to do is I try to make sure that whatever dog that I'm working or whatever
You
dogs
sneak
that
in
I'm
some
working.
OB sessions.
Yeah. I make sure we get some OB eggs. I'm like, nah, man, I'm not handing this dog off to you, and they ain't got no OB because it's just teaching handlers courses to brand new handlers when their dog doesn't really have a solid foundation. It kind of contradicts. And now you got to work on the dog, but you also got to work on the handler. And so what
Yeah.
I like to do is really dig deep in to get those dogs obedient squared away. So when the handler course comes, my main focus is just focusing on the handler. So I try to bulletproof those dogs as much as possible prior to the handler course. It's just one less
Yeah.
thing to worry about.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know every department has a different policy on what their dogs can use.
Mm-hmm.
The department that you're sending dogs to, who you're working for, do you guys use e-collars and prongs?
Yes. So it depends. So what we do is we'll train the dogs. Typically, majority of the dogs that we're training, we initially start their training on a flat collar and a back tie. Like we don't add tools to them until like probably a week prior to the handlers course because again we don't know what kind of tools the handlers want to use for those specific dogs, and so we try to keep it pretty inducive in the beginning, and then towards that week we'll either reach out to the handlers or the department like, hey, what tools will this dog be using, and then we'll implement it on the dogs prior to the handlers coming. So it's not, hey, cool, you're going to handler's course, here's your dog, and then you slap a prong collar on it or an e-collar and you don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
Like that's the last thing we want is dogs getting fucked up because the handlers don't know what they're doing.
How to use them, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you guys do verbal? I'm just doing a podcast with Ricky Rivera.
Yeah.
Um, what is your process of outing? Or I wouldn't say process, but he was saying that for his program, he does like verbal outs. Just wants to make sure that the handlers will have multiple different ways to out the dog. Is that kind
Yeah.
of what you guys do?
Yes, and I talked to Ricky. I'm actually good buddies with Ricky, so I reach out to him, especially because I started working with police dogs, and I know he has a lot of experience with it. So if I ever have questions, I always reach out to him, and we do the same thing, right? So initially, we'll teach the dog, or we'll hard out the dogs in the initial phases of training. We'll just take them off the bite, and then we'll teach them the verbal out as well. And we teach them standoff, recalls, all that stuff as well through the handler's course.
Good, that's good. And you
Yeah.
said that you guys didn't really focus on obedience, but for a police dog, even just having, a verbal out, I mean, that is like amazing if you see some of these
Right.
videos online. You're just like, oh my gosh, like it had an out.
Yeah.
And I was just saying the same thing to him because I saw this video recently. It was this video on TikTok. The dog was on a bite, and his handler was screaming at him to plot. Obviously you know what that means.
Yeah.
The dog was not plotting, and everyone commenting it was so funny. They thought the dog's name was Plots. Um, there was like one or two people that were like, "You guys are all idiots. Plots means down in German."
Yeah.
So I was just like reading through the comments, but he's screaming at the dog to Plots. He has zero control over the dog, and obviously that becomes a huge liability for the department too.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's super important that police dogs have verbal outs. I don't
Right.
think that you should have a dog on the street that cannot out on command. Now
Correct.
maybe some of these outs might get a little sticky. You might need like one or two commands, like fine, but you should not have zero control over a dog who is literally biting people.
Yeah, and that's what we see, and it's not the dogs that we have. Like some people, they'll come through our course and they'll have their dogs. So we teach our dogs obedience. Yeah, some dogs will have it sitting down. Some dogs won't have a heel just yet. That takes a little bit long, or it takes some time to teach a dog a heel, depending on the dog.
Yeah.
But majority of the dogs that we send out, they have a sitting it down already. But we'll see people who bring their dogs to our handlers course, and the first thing we do, like, we'll go to class, they'll do all the PowerPoints and shit, and then we'll start like, all right, cool. We start every day with OB, and I'm like, all right, cool. Let me see what your dog's got, man. I'm excited. I love OB, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, dude? And so like, me, like I help them out. I give them tools. I'll show them like, hey, your dog can do this, but you have to show your dog. You
Yeah.
have to, or corrections. Some corrections are very very light, and I'm like, dude, this is a strong dog. Like, you put some umph behind it. Hold the
Yeah.
dog accountable. These are police dogs. These aren't pets. These aren't,
Yeah.
you know, chihuahuas or something. Like.
Hey, don't talk about Snooki like that.
I'm
Snooki
like,
does whatever
so
she wants. She doesn't even know how to sit.
I don't know. I try to help every handler, every cop that comes through that course. I try to leave them with some type of knowledge of whatever they're needing for their dogs. I even come in on weekends to help these handlers out because at the end of the day, like, I don't want them to be like, dang, like this dude didn't help me out, or I went through this course and I didn't really learn anything. Like, I challenge these guys, or I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, like, what is explain the contingency square to me, or stuff like that. Stuff like that they're not really going to hear on the day-to-day basis, but it's going to make them a better handler. So I just
Yeah.
try to, plant those seeds in each and every one of them to just be like, hey, like constantly need to be thinking instead of just doing basic sit down, like have fun with your dog, engage with your dog, because you'll get a better product out of it when you're doing OB. So that's what I try to do when we do handlers course, and again, they love it. Their dogs, it's like night and day. Their dogs, they're like, this is just a completely different dog. I'm like, you only changed one thing, and it made a huge difference. Just imagine if you continue to advance and switch up what you do every single day instead of getting in a routine of, all right, cool, I'm going to grab my dog, I'm going to put him in the car, and then we're going to go. Like, no, grab your dog, do some OB, then put him in the car. Grab your dog, feed him, then put him in the car. Like, switch it up, keep your dog guessing, and I guarantee you'll get a better product out.
Out of
Okay.
the three, what's your favorite? And then out of protection and detection, what do you prefer to teach and maybe to handle dogs for? Because I know that you've been on both ends.
So I would say my favorite would be, that's hard. Obedience and detection is just like right there with each other. I
I knew you were going to
genuinely,
say that.
I just love the psychology that comes with detection, but it also it's the same thing with obedience because I can create one side picture with a dog for obedience that doesn't work for the next. So now I
Yeah.
have to, think of like, all right, cool, how can I get this dog to do this behavior when I can't use the same side picture. That's what I love about obedience too, because again, every dog is different, but once it clicks, and that's the same with odor. Every dog's not going to be like, all right, cool, I smell this odor, I'm just going to go ahead and sit, or I'm going to lock on source. Some dogs will sniff, look back at you like, hey, it's right here, and then continue moving on. So how do I get that dog to lock on source and not move? And just like that video I posted on my Instagram about that dog Gamma, I think it was last week or whatever. That was the hardest dog I ever had to train for detection and obedience, everything. Taylor, when I say like this dog would not like the most psychotic German Shepherd I've ever seen in my life, and you wouldn't even guess it from the video that I posted of her. But teaching her odor, she just loved to bite everything. So she'd get on odor and she just bite it and claw at the drawer, and she was just a big stress ball. And so to be able to teach her to calm down, to be obedient to odor, for me to smack the Kong, and she's an indirect reward dog, smack the Kong, clap my hands, whatever, and her to stay there at odor was like such the most rewarding thing for me. And then when I get the Kong back every single time, she's like, all right, cool, I want to go back to source. She did not have that hunt drive in her when we first got her. She was just very psychotic and crazy.
Yeah.
And so she's probably the most rewarding dog that I've been able to train since I got out the military by far.
Yeah, I remember you posting about her, and it's funny when trainers have a hard time with the dog, they'll just be like, "Yeah, this one definitely made me think outside of the box," and like you
Yeah.
just wonder, like what you had to do to get them. What is the age range for military and police dogs?
So the age range that we look to get them at for the civilian side for police dogs, the youngest I seen was 8 months, and so we allowed that dog to mature for a while, and then we started training with that dog. But typically we try to get them between like 12 months to about a year and a half to 2 years old, and then we start their training. And then in the military, we get them to the bases around a year to a year and a half, as well.
And then what age for both are they typically full on retired? Obviously, dog dependent because some might
Yeah,
be earlier, but say a
right.
healthy dog, are they pretty much just going until they kind of show that they don't want to go, or what is the
So
process like?
yeah, so for a healthy dog, let's say, yeah, the dog's healthy, doesn't really have any issues. Depending on the base, because there's a lot for the military side, the vet has to get approval from their top vet, and then the commander has to approve retiring this dog, and the military is a little different about it. If the dog's nose still work and they don't have any issues, that dog could probably work to be about 12.
Hey,
And then for the civilian side or the police side, I'm pretty sure that they can pretty much, if they leave that department, they could probably retire that dog out if it's their assigned dog. But typically, what I've seen or what I've heard was around like 8 to 9, maybe 10 years old, they just retire those dogs.
yeah.
Yeah, because
What are the
those dogs are
yeah?
seeing shit and biting, getting real world bites, and yeah, they're crazy.
Oh, what is the breed that you see the most with police dogs, or is it the same, just kind of like a combination?
Honestly, I see a lot of Mals. Or at least where I'm at in Texas, I see a lot of Mals and Dutchies. There are Shepherds, but mainly, even through the courses, it's just a bunch. It's a lot of Mals.
Well, I would imagine too the heat is probably an issue for the shepherds. Um,
Yeah,
So I could imagine why that. I mean, obviously, there's some things that mouths are typically just better suited for, anyways. But I think even shepherds might sometimes don't laugh at me because I said that. Don't agree with that. Um, but yeah, I would imagine that some of the shepherds have an issue kind of keeping up with the heat, especially if they're like tracking or
yeah,
doing detection and stuff. Because
yeah.
it be hot there. What have you been up to for the last 6 weeks?
Well, so outside of dog training, I really enjoy riding horses and working cattle. I just recently got into team roping about 8 months ago, right before I left Virginia, and so I've been really like digging deep into learning horses, how to train horses, riding horses, roping off horses. I've been having it's like learning like how I felt when I first started training dogs. That's how I feel about me, doing cowboy shit now. Like I absolutely love it. It's insane. And then what's crazy is too like the stuff that I do for work or training dogs, it transfers over. Excuse me. It transfers over with training horses or reading horses. It's all behavior, like reading
Hey,
behavior, correcting behavior, and they learn off the release of pressure just like dogs do.
yeah.
But yeah, I've just been thoroughly enjoying it and just embracing it. Texas, back home in Texas, I'm just trying to do cowboy shit on my days off.
I love the stories you post when you're like lassoing, like the
Yeah,
fake arm. Like it's so funny because when you talk about what you're doing and then when you actually post the videos, like that's exactly what I imagine you like all doing it. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you Thomas for coming onto the podcast. It was great
absolutely.
catching up with you and learning about military working dogs, police dogs, and just your background and experience in both of those areas. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you.